For this video, we will be adding and subtracting fractions that are related. We will be using our knowledge on equivalent fractions to add and subtract these kinds of fractions. If you haven't watched it yet, check the link below. What do we mean first when we say related fractions? Related fractions are fractions wherein the denominators can be multiple or factor of the other fraction. So, example of that would be 1/2 and 2/4 or 3/8. Okay, so all these denominators 2 can be turned into fourths and it can also be turned into eighths. Eighths can be turned to fourths, can also be turned to halves. So that's related fractions. For today, we will be adding and subtracting these kinds of fractions. So let's start with addition of, say for example, 3/8 plus 1/2. Okay, so if I want to add 3/8 and 1/2, I would have to show that first using our model or our bars here. So 1/2 and 3/8. So it's 1, 2, there. So I want to shade 3 parts of this, 2, 3. Now, remember, when we add fractions, we can only add fractions with the same denominator. Therefore, since we have two different denominators here, 8 and 2, we would have to change one of those fractions into the same name as the other fraction. Same name or same denominator. So in this case, you ask yourself, can I change 3/8 into halves? Meaning, can I divide or multiply a number to 3 and 8 wherein I can get halves? I don't think there's a number that I can divide both 3 and 8 with. So I would now go to 1/2. For 1/2, can I sure, I can divide 8 by 4 to get a half, but I cannot divide 3 by 4. In that case, I cannot change 3/8. Now I'll go to 1/2. Can I make the halves into eighths? Let's see if I can make the halves into eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, I can make my halves into eighths. And how many eighths are there in 1/2? There are 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 eighths. So I would now be changing this 3/8 plus 4/8. Now that we have the same denominator, can we now add the fractions? We can already add the fractions. Now, that would be 3 plus 4, 7. And then, it is still eighths. So, 7/8. Alright, let's try another example. What if I want to add 3/4 plus 1/12. Alright, now ask yourself, can you change the fourths into twelfths? Yes, I can change the fourths into twelfths. So showing this first, 3/4. That's 1, 2, 3/4, shading 3 parts of it. 1, 2, that's 3/4, and then 1/12. It's 1, sorry. 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. Okay, and 12. And shade one part of this. Alright, so we will be changing now our fourths into twelfths. Let's see how many fourths how many twelfths are there in 3/4? There are, let's count now. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 twelfths. So our 3/4 became 9 twelfths. Alright, now we can do 9 twelfths plus 1 twelfth. And that would now be equal to 10 twelfths. Alright, is this fraction already in its simplest form? No, it's not yet in simplest form. So we can still think of a number that I can divide both 10 and 12 with. And that is 2. Okay? And that would now be equal to 5/6. So our final answer is 5/6. Alright, let's now try another one. So for our next example, let's have let's say I would have to add 2/3 plus change my Now let's try another example. This time, let us subtract 5/6 minus 3/12. Okay, so for this example, I would have to show 5/6 first. That's my 5/6. Oops. So this is my 5/6, and I would have to subtract 3/12 from it. But I don't think I can subtract 6 and 12 or 12 and 6 because again it's different. Just like addition, we can only subtract fractions that are of the same name or of the same denominator. So I would have to change either 5/6 into 12s or 3/12 into 6. Well, I can do 5/6 into 12s. So let us now turn this into 12s. So 5/6 has 10/12. Okay, so 10/12 minus 3/12. Let's now subtract 3/12 from 10/12. That would now be 1, 2, 3. And the leftover here would be our answer. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 10 minus 3, 7/12. Another example. What if I want to subtract 1 whole minus 2/3? Alright. Now we have 1 whole and 2/3. For us to subtract, again, we have to make them the same denominator. So in this case, I would have to change my 1 whole into a fraction. Now, let us have another example. 1 minus 2/3. Okay, so for this example, I would have to change my whole number into a fraction that is the same denominator as 3. So let's find out how many thirds are there in 1 whole. So there are 3/3 in 1 whole. Now that we have this, I can now rewrite this 3/3 minus 2/3. Subtracting 2/3 from 1/2, this one will be our answer now. So 3/3 minus 2/3 would now be equal to 1/3. There you have it. Let's try two more examples, both for addition and subtraction. Let's try 2/5 plus 3/10, and then afterwards 1/2 minus 5/8. Okay, so let's do that one by one. 2/5 plus 3/10. Again, I have to change my 2/5 into a fraction that is of the same denominator as 10, or my tenths into fifths. But in this case, I can just change my 2/5 into tenths by multiplying. Remember your equivalent fractions. To make my 2/5 into tenths, I can just multiply 5 by 2 and then 2 by 2. So 4/10. Now I have that. I can now change my equation or rewrite my equation to 4/10 plus 3/10, which is equal to 3 plus 4 is 7/10. Alright, another one. Now 1 minus 5/8. For this one, I would have to change my whole number into a fraction that is of the same denominator as 8. So how many 8s are there in one whole? There are 8 8s in one whole. So one whole is equal to 8 8s. Now, I can rewrite my equation to 8 8s minus 5 8s, which is now equal to 3 8s. Alright, so that is how we add and subtract fractions that are related.